This tutorial takes you a little bit deeper into what you can do with type, and we're going to start with typing on a path and typing in an area, and then we'll go into compound paths, which means we can edit the actual font that you're using. So under the type tool, we click and hold, we can see there's an area type and a type on path. So we're going to start with just the area type. Basically, you just need an object or an area for the type to go into. So if I choose the ellipse, I'm going to hold shift, I'm going to make a perfect circle. Right now it's filled in. I'm just going to switch this so that it's not filled in, but it has a black line, which is going to change in just a minute. So I'm going to zoom in. And then I'm going to go to the area type tool. I'm going to click inside. If you get this, it's basically asking you to actually click on the path. Okay, so I'm going to go over this time, and I can see the little green word that comes up that says path, and I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go to my character over here. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. And then I can just start typing in here. Illustrator is really cool. Okay, so basically it's going to just fill in that area. So try it with multiple different shapes. If I go to the polygon tool and I click down once, I'm going to tell it how many sides I want. If I want to do a triangle, I'll do 3 sides and say OK. So same thing, it filled it with black. I just want the stroke to be black. I'm going to go to the area type. So right now, if I click off on this, you're going to see that there is a black stroke going around it. But when I come in with the area type and I click on the path, it's automatically going to take that away, because then I can add, whatever shape I want around it later. So then here, same thing, I can kind of fill it into the area. Okay. If I use the direct selection tool, I can expand this. I can make it bigger and smaller. Let's try this one. Or I should be able to at least change the size of this so I can make it bigger and smaller. Right now, what's going on is I turned off the bounding box. So if you ever notice that you can't change size or shape or things like that, we're going to go to View, and we're going to go to Show Bounding Box. Cool. Then what I can do is I can hold shift and I can make this bigger or smaller. Same thing over here. This is how I'm going to make it bigger or smaller. Okay, so you can get it to fit in that area. So that's one way that you can use the type tool. I'm going to delete this. Okay, then the next one below is type on path tool. So I'm going to show you a couple different ways that I can use this. One is anytime you make any kind of path, it's going to work. So I could come with the pen tool and I can make this lovely wave kind of coming through here. I'm going to switch this so that I have a line only. Then if I click on the type on path tool, I'm just going to click somewhere. Right now, if I go to my paragraph, I can see that I'm center aligned. So that's why it started there. If I do left align, it's going to move the cursor to the left, and right is going to move it to the right. So then I can start typing on here. It's just going to follow my path. If I type too much, you can see that the plus came up. So I'm going to try backspacing, or I can extend the size of it a little bit further. So you can make any path that way. What I would like you to do is make a ellipse. So do a perfect circle by holding shift and dragging. So once again, this time I want you to make a word on the outside here. So if I go to type on a path, I'm going to click on center justify because I want it to be on the top. I'm going to do this again. Just switch where I want it to go. So I'm going to start here. So go ahead and write a word or two. So just a word or for a short phrase. And then I want you to make this the size. So highlight it. You can double click to highlight. Character, do it between 20 and 30. Maybe I'm going to click down. I'll do 36. I'm going to do a Control plus to zoom in. And then if I go to paragraph, if I do center align. Kind of switches it around. I'm going to do it like that for now, and you'll see how we can adjust it as we go through this. So I'm going to go to my selection tool, and what it does is it brings up, so when I click on this, it brings up a box. It shows me that blue of the circle, and it shows me a couple lines. To see this a little bit better, what I'm going to have you do is go to Window, and just for now, hide the bounding box. So that takes off that box. And we can see what's going to happen next a little bit easier. So the first thing I want you to do is move your cursor to the blue line that looks like a T. Okay, and what comes up is this cursor plus a little upside down T. Basically what that does is that allows you to move the text around the circle to where you want it to go. Okay, so if I put it over here and I do center align, it just moves it to a different spot. And then maybe I can align it to the top, and you can see that there's that green line going through that it shows me it's centered on there. Something else you can do with this is you can click and you can drag. You can see that it's brought it to the inside of my path, so inside of my circle this time. Then I can just move it around. Maybe I want it down here so I can see it. So that's an easy way to flip it to the inside. Then something else that you'll want to pay attention to with this is we can expand and contract the amount of space that the text takes up on here. So if I come over here to this time to the opposite blue line that has a box around it, I've got this cursor with the arrow this time, and I can move this. So it's going to move my text. So this is going to contract the space that I can put text. If I don't have all of the text in there, it's going to bring up that red plus, or I can expand it so I have a lot more space to put it in. So this is just me being able to control how much text can go on my ellipse. Okay, next I want you to turn back on the bounding box. That was just to see how that all works. So I'm going to go to View, Show Bounding Box. And next I'm going to show you how to edit the font and the type specifically. And this is where you really start to unleash the power of Illustrator and all of the editing that you can start doing with it. So I want you to go to the Type tool, find a spot to type a word. Make sure it's big enough to see. So let's do, I'm going to do 60. I'm going to choose a font that is just a little bit thicker. Not many of these are. I'll try this one. Okay, and then you can really see what's going to happen. So what we're going to do is I want you to go to your selection tool and make sure that the box is highlighted. Then from here, we're going to go to Type, and then we're going to do Create Outlines. And what this does is essentially creates a path or creates an object. So it's no longer just type. There's all these tiny little points on it. Okay, so that means I can edit specific parts of it. In order to edit different letters to change the size and all of that, you're going to have to ungroup it because right now it's one group. So I'm going to have it selected. I'm going to go to Object and then Ungroup. And then what I can come in and do is select just one letter. So I can change just this letter if I wanted to. I can make it taller than the rest. Okay, so I can play with it that way. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit further. And when I click on it, you can start to see all those points. So with my direct selection tool, I can come in and I can click on an anchor point, and I could drag it up. I could delete that anchor point. I could select a couple anchor points. So I could select this one, hold Shift, select that one, and I could bring both of those up. Okay. So this is when you're really able to start manipulating and changing things in order to make them your own. You can also adjust the anchor points, like the shape of them. So if I go over to my pen tool and choose Convert Anchor Point, I could click on one of my anchor points, so this one. It's going to bring up the handles, and then I can actually change the entire shape of this. Okay, so now it's no longer that geometric harsh edge, now it's a curved edge. So you can go back to that direct selection tool and work with that as well. Okay, lastly, I'm going to show you compound paths. So what I want you to do is make a lowercase a and convert it to an outline. So I'm just going to click on the text. I'm going to click, I'm going to make a, and then I'm going to select it with the selection tool and do type, and then create outlines. Okay, so when we zoom in, we can see that there's essentially, two shapes here. Okay, so there is the black, and then there's another shape inside here that creates that inside. Okay, so I can't select them separately. So we're going to create what's called a compound path. So we have two shapes. So what I want you to do is select the letter. Oops, I didn't need to do that. Select the letter, and then go to Object, Compound Path, and do Release. Okay, and you can see what that does is it releases that path, and it makes these all the same fill. So now if I want to change this one at all, so I'm going to click just on that, I can go and I can change this. So I could make it transparent. So I can switch these. Should be, or actually I would end up filling it with white. So I could either fill it with white to make it look like my background if it was white, or I can fill it with another color. And it just allows you to edit these separately. If you would ever want them to come back together, I'm going to select both of them. They're both selected now. And then I would go back to Object, Compound Paths, and then Make. Okay. And then from here, I would have to go to this and choose the color that I want. Okay. And then that's going to create that see-through area. So we'll go through compound paths and creating that positive negative shape a little bit more in the next tutorial.